Welcome to NACTV Reads the News. My name is Cathy McGrath, and I'm one of many volunteers that help create programming for our station. NACTV can be seen on MTS Channel 30 or 1030, Westman Cable Channel 17, Bell Satellite Channel 592, or online at nactv.tv. These programs are made possible by our volunteers, staff, advertisers, as well as donations made by you, the viewers. If you are enjoying your NACTV experience, please consider supporting us by either donation or volunteering. You can contact our office at 204-476-2639 or at nactv@wcgwave.ca. And today's issue of the Neepawa Banner and Press is for Friday, February 14th, 2025, Valentine's Day. And on the front page, introducing Neepawa's new medical duo. Pictured Mr. Boulanger, PA, and Dr. Danielle Paradis, a married couple who moved to Neepawa last year and are pursuing their medical careers here. By Casper Warehan. A brand new medical duo is in Neepawa. This is Dr. Danielle Paradis and Mr. Brian Boulanger, a married medical couple who have recently made their home here. Dr. Paradis and Mr. Boulanger met with the Neepawa Banner and Press, sharing details on what they do, how they came to pursue their careers here, and more. Dr. Paradis is a physician at the Beautiful Plains Medical Clinic and the Neepawa Hospital. At the hospital, she provides inpatient and emergency room care. She also performs outpatient medical procedures, such as skin biopsies and small lesion removals. Currently, she is obtaining medical privileges to provide care for low to medium risk obstetrics. She also provides in-person medical services for the McCreary Alonza Transitional Care Unit and Personal Care Home in McCreary 1 day per week. I think even from an early age, I was always interested in the medical field. If you ask my parents, even at 2 or 3 years old, I said I wanted to be a doctor, said Dr. Paradis. Excuse me. I never grew out of it. I continue to have an interest in the medical field and medical conditions in general. Mr. Boulanger is a physician assistant, PA, at the Neepawa Hospital, the first PA to be stationed at the local facility. Mr. Boulanger's role is to provide acute care services as an additional clinician. I help where it's needed, and if the emergency room waiting times can be decreased because I'm around, then I've achieved my goal, said Mr. Boulanger. Prior to becoming a civilian PA, Mr. Boulanger was a medic in the military, having enlisted when he was 18. As a military medic, his core training was as a paramedic, with other clinical courses and opportunities completed during his full-time military service. That was my introduction to healthcare, and it just seemed natural to advance towards becoming a PA. Healthcare never gets boring. There's always something new to do and learn, said Mr. Boulanger. Eventually, I progressed to become an officer and a physician assistant. I've always had an interest for some reason. There really wasn't a trigger point for why I wanted to do healthcare. It just came naturally. The difference between MD and PA. The pair also noted that, in addition to different educational requirements, the difference between a physician, doctor of medicine, MD, and a PA is the scope of practice. When you come out of medical school, you have a generalized breadth of medical knowledge. It is during medical residency that you learn and train to become a specific type of physician, Dr. Paradis explained. The length of your residency can last anywhere from 2 to 11 years beyond medical school. Many rural family physicians have completed at least 2 years of residency training. As a PA, Mr. Boulanger noted that the scope of practice comes from the delegation of tasks via a physician supervisor. The supervisor can delegate a skill, task, or expected action to a PA, said Mr. Boulanger. Ultimately, there has to be a strong trust relationship between the physician and the physician assistant. Neepawa is full of opportunity. With Dr. Paradis originally being from the Pelican Lake area and Mr. Boulanger originally from Montreal, their meeting came quite by chance. While pursuing further education for their respective medical positions, their travels brought them both to Saint-Rose-de-Lac, where they met through work. They worked in that area until the summer of 2024. Some big draws in their decision to move to Neepawa included the community's growth, developments, and the opportunities available for them personally and professionally, as well the opportunities available for their 3-year-old daughter. There's a vibe in Neepawa that's happening right now that isn't everywhere else. It's growing, people seem happy here, and the town has a positive dynamic, Mr. Belanger enthused. And the new hospital coming in, profession-wise, this is very appealing. How often does someone in the medical field get the chance to work in a brand new hospital? Dr. Paradis added, with a few weeks of moving here, we were able to find a reliable babysitter, daycare, and someone local to help with the house maintenance. The support from the medical and greater community has been phenomenal. That makes a big difference. Providing a final comment, the pair shared that they are very pleased with the move and that they don't plan on going anywhere. You're stuck with us, Dr. Paradis laughed. And a unique opportunity for job seekers. The 4th annual job fair to be hosted in Neepawa by Casper Warehan. In pictured, the 3rd annual job fair in Neepawa was well attended last year. The 2025 edition of the event is right around the corner. A wide variety of booths showcasing different job opportunities were in attendance. Preparations are well underway for the 4th edition of the Neepawa Job Fair. This annual event is co-hosted by Neepawa Economic Development, Neepawa and Area Immigration Settlement Services, and Westlake Employment Skills and Services Center. It welcomes a variety of businesses, encouraging all to see what sorts of opportunities are available in the community and surrounding area. The job fair will be held on February 27th from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the Neepawa Legion. It is open for all the public to attend, and as of late January, a total of 8 businesses were registered, more are being accepted until February 21st. Closing the loop. Every year I feel there's those usual employers you expect to see. Prairie Mountain Health, the school divisions, co-op, and that every year there's always a few surprises, said Economic Development Officer Marilyn Crew. Those businesses that I didn't know were looking. The school division really has been looking for teachers and that sort of thing, but I have in the past had educators that attend. Crew added, last year we had 21 booths. Some of those were educators. I think that for anyone who is interested in the current job market, that is a place to see it all in one place and to see what's happening. While it is not always possible for educators to attend, Crew noted that their attendance aids in closing the loop. That is because some employers may require certain skills or licenses, and having educators on the site may help make avenues to pursue those readily available. With the variety of employers that attend the annual job fair, job seekers may find positions such as Class 2 engineering, front desk housekeeping work, summer positions, and more. And the job seeker attendance growing. Thea Duca, Executive Assistant and Employment Officer at Neepawa and Area Immigrant Settlement Services, noted that this event is a valuable resource. The job fair offers a unique opportunity for job seekers to connect directly with local employers, ask questions, and explore potential employment options, said Duca. For newcomers, it's an especially valuable experience as it helps them understand the local job market, improve their resume, and gain confidence in their job search. It's also an excellent way for them to get their foot in the door and learn about job openings that they may not have been aware of otherwise. Flor Deleuze Bocanquito, Employment Services Manager at Westlake, made note of the response to the fair over the years, adding, "We've seen a growing trend in job seeker participation. There has been a diverse mix of job seekers, including newcomer immigrants, individuals who are employed or underemployed, seeking better opportunities, and students who are on the lookout for summer jobs or internships. The organizers of this event welcome and encourage all to attend and become acquainted with the opportunities available." And right in the center by Ken Waddell, In Search of the Truth. And as always, the views expressed in this column are the writer's personal views and are not to be taken as being the view of the newspaper staff. Amid the flood of information that washes over us every day, I long for news media, academics, and general public to actually think about their responses and their reactions. Lately, the largest source of information by far has been Donald Trump's office. The newly elected United States president has been issuing seemingly endless proclamations, and obviously with mixed reviews. Some people think that everything Trump says or does is wonderful. Some think everything he says or does is terrible, despicable even. Neither extreme is true. Consider his suggestion to rebuild Gaza under control of the United States. Some say it's ridiculous. Some say it's illegal and unprecedented. However, consider the facts. Gaza is an area about 24 miles long and 6 miles wide. I think it's smaller than an average rural municipality in Manitoba. It is basically a defeated country in a war that certain Hamas-backed citizens of Gaza caused. They invaded Israel, killed several hundred people, and took many prisoners. The buildings and infrastructure have been destroyed by the Israeli attacks. Thousands have died, hundreds of thousands of people are displaced. The roots of the Palestinian-Israel conflict goes back many centuries. I've been told that Israel at one point in time backed Hamas. A quick internet search shows Hamas was initially discreetly supported by Israel as a counterbalance to the secular Palestine Liberation Organization. So what is the solution to this conflict that can somehow be traced back 3,000 years? Consider that Gaza has about 2.2 million people in that little area, half of which is urban, half is agricultural. It's been reported that 80% of its income has been foreign aid. Foreign aid money that arguably went into building Gaza also went into bomb shelters, bombs, armaments, and drones. It is now destroyed, and they really have nobody to blame but themselves. Trump's idea on Gaza may be outlandish and unpopular, but it is not without precedent. In 1918, World War I ended with the defeat of the Germans. Many of Germany's assets and colonies were divided up among other countries. My understanding is that the Congo was a German colony and was given to Belgium to compensate for how the World War I devastated that country. After World War II, many pieces of Europe and Germany were divided up. And guess who financed and guided a lot of the redevelopment? The United States did. Trump's plan is not new. Rebuilding war-torn countries has been going on for years. Any plans for Gaza, including the two-state idea, will be difficult and long-suffering. If people or countries object to Trump's plan, then let them come up with a better one. Maybe that's what Trump is looking for. Trump's proposals and proclamations seem outrageous. Some say he is an immoral man, but that alone didn't seem to sway the American people from voting for him. It didn't sway them from voting for a past list of presidents who were less than pristine in behavior either. No matter how much we may dislike Trump and his ideas, we are likely faced with 4 more years of him. I think our lives will be a lot easier if we have strong leaders in Canada to make a strong case for Canada and Canadians. Not everything Trump says is wrong, but sorting out the truth from the fiction will keep us busy. And Home Buddies by Rita Friesen. After work. I am my father's child. Whenever Dad saw print, he needed to pick up the paper, the book, the magazine, the personal mail, whatever, and he read it. He was not always an observant person. However, after visiting a cousin's home, he commented that a place could be kept very tidy when there were no books or papers lying around. He did notice the complete absence of reading material. If he had investigated, I am certain Dad would have found a well-worn Bible at the bedside, and to his credit, he didn't go check. Saying all this to confess that while visiting a dear elderly friend, 94 or 95 is elderly, I noted a book of poetry on her coffee table. It intrigued me. Not everyone reads poetry. Gently scanning through the pages, a short poem arrested my attention. After Work by John Oxenham. It spoke so clearly that I snuck a pen and wrote the title on the palm of my hand. My memory being what it is, isn't what it was, and I wanted to recall and research the work. Oxenham wrote in the Victorian era, was British, and authored some 30 novels. Lord, when thou seest that my work is done, let me not linger on, with failing powers, adown the weary hours, a workless worker in a world of work. But with a word, just bid me home, and I will come, rightly, gladly, yea, rightly, gladly will I come. Alliteration catches me in the feels. A workless worker in a world of work, something I would never wish to experience, and all the more poignant as I sat with my friend. Still living, mostly independently, still present, though there are life memories that get shared at every tea time, contented and mostly at peace. During our time together, we speak of the past, the wonder of good memories that surround us, the support of family and our faith. It was with a mixture of humility and pride that she recited Psalm 23 and John 3:16, both key scriptures in many denominations, spoke them with assurance in both the English and Ukrainian language. Then I reevaluated a workless worker in a world of work. No longer knitting, curling, baking, gardening, or crocheting, sitting with memories, being thankful and resting in her faith. That looks a lot like work to me. Again, having said that, I identify with the closing lines very strongly as well. Just bid me home, and I will come right gladly. I look around at the state of the world, political, economical, and socially, and I am thankful that I am old. I am thankful that I'm not raising a family, trying for an education, seeking employment, or trying to purchase a home. I am thankful for my safe home, my yard and garden, my abilities, physical and mental, well aware of how transient all of these are. So, Isabel, thank you continuing to be a mentor, whether you know it or not. In all these ramblings, faith is the anchor. Faith is my anchor, working with a purpose while I can, ready to come when called. Right gladly will I come. And On Being Faithful, Faithfully Yours by Neil Stroschein. In one of his parables, Jesus spoke about a man who went on a long journey to a far country. Before leaving, he called his servants and gave each a sum of money to use as the servant saw fit. The man's expectations were clear. He expected his servant to use the money wisely, making sound investments that would generate a healthy return. When he returned, the man asked each of his servants to tell him what they had done with his money. 2 of them, through skillful trading and prudent management, were able to give the man twice as much as they had originally been given. Each received the highest compliment anyone could receive. Well done, good and faithful servant. These words made me wonder what God might ask us to do so that at life's end, he would call us good and faithful servants. These 4 thoughts came to mind. First, treat our current role in life as God's calling for us at this time. Nothing in this life ever happens by accident. God knew all there is to know about us long before we were born. In his sovereign wisdom, he planned for each of us to be where we are and where we work, and he has given us all the resources we need to excel in the work we currently do. That doesn't mean he has made us self-sufficient. Instead, he has put us in places where those with whom we work can help us overcome difficult challenges, whatever they might be, and wherever we might encounter them. Second, have a servant's heart. Follow the example of Jesus, who did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many. Matthew 20:28. St. Paul adds these words, "Whatever your task, put yourselves into it, as done for the Lord and not for your masters, since you know that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You serve the Lord Christ." Colossians 3:23-24. In this life, we will have many supervisors, but we will only have our boss, our Lord Jesus Christ. When we make it our goal to please him in all that we do, the things we do will please our earthly supervisors and benefit those around us. Third, focus on one task at a time. Few of us are as good at multitasking as we think we are. In my work, I work on one project at a time, whether it's a column, a sermon, an order of service, or a home maintenance project. I set aside all other tasks and focus on the one in front of me. I know that at any time I can be asked to run an errand, do something around the house, make an important phone call, or answer an urgent email. By focusing on one task, instead of trying to juggle 3 or 4, I can easily pick up where I left off and complete each project on time. Finally, remember that one day we will stand before God, and he will ask each of us to tell him what we have done with the opportunities and the resources he has given us. If we consistently apply the guidelines given above, we won't have to worry about results. God will show us what our lives and work have really accomplished and how many people we have touched through our loving service. Then he will give us the highest commendation anyone can receive, the words, Well done, good and faithful servant. And thumbs up and thumbs down. I would like to give a big thumbs up to Kinley Thompson for the great achievement they received for Business of the Year. You deserve it for the countless hours you put in at this time of year. It is always a warm welcome from any of your staff when one walks through your business door. Congratulations, from Terry Smith of Neepawa. And a thumbs up to a good neighbor and friend who took her grandmother, Lois Jones, my wife, Karen Smith, and me to the 100th anniversary of the men's curling bonspiel for the Manitoba title. Thanks, Brittany. From Robert Smith of Edrins, Manitoba. And a thumbs down for all the politicians who are now quick to jump behind the Canadian flag, but for years seem to love and worship the American way of life and the belief it is a God-given right to make piles of money without a care who gets trampled. Again, Robert Smith of Edrins. And I would like to send a huge thumbs up to Kinley Thompson for all their employees, and not only for their huge generosity, but for their commitment to the betterment of all the communities that they serve. Thank you, from John Lackey. And then we have letters. Canada deserves better trade and leadership. And this letter is from Levi Cottingham of Bertle. President Trump's threat of tariffs has uncovered an uncomfortable truth about Canada's economy. We are far too dependent on the United States. With inflation rising and economic growth slowing, Canadians are already feeling the effects. We can no longer ignore the deep-rooted issues that are holding us back. If we truly want job growth, we need to tackle those problems head-on. One simple but powerful solution is right in front of us. We need to eliminate the trade barriers within our own country. It is frustrating and illogical that it is easier to trade with other countries than it is to trade with fellow Canadians. Incredibly, interprovincial trade accounts for just 36% of Canada's GDP, while international trade makes up a staggering 66%. This means we are doing more business with the rest of the world than we are with each other. Not only does this limit our potential, but it also creates unnecessary roadblocks for businesses and workers. Why does this imbalance exist? Each province has its own set of rules and regulations governing everything from goods to services. Instead of creating a unified market, these regulations make it harder for businesses and professionals to operate across provincial borders. The Canada Free Trade Agreement was meant to solve this issue, but it has failed. With 245 exemptions, it's more difficult to trade within Canada than it is to trade internationally. The economic impact of fixing this is huge. If we could eliminate these internal barriers, it could add an astonishing $200 billion to Canada's economy every year. That's about $5,100 for every person in the country. Imagine what we could do for our industries, our job market, and our standard of living. We could create more competitive markets, better access to talent, and stronger, more diverse industries. The possibilities are endless. One proposal gaining attention is from Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party. His plan for a Blue Seal professional licensing standard would allow skilled workers to move freely across provinces, easing labor shortages in key sectors, especially healthcare. This isn't just about helping workers, it's about helping patients, families, and communities who rely on these essential services. It's a practical solution that could make a real difference in the lives of Canadians. Poilievre also suggests redirecting the increased federal tax revenue from reducing internal trade barriers into provincial priorities such as education, healthcare, and infrastructure. This would ensure that the solution is reverse neutral, meaning no added strain on the national debt. Unlike the growing deficit we've seen in recent years, this approach focuses on reinvesting in our own communities, ensuring a stronger economy for everyone. Some may worry that promising free trade within Canada could harm our international trade agreements, but that's a misconception. Strengthening our internal trade is about making Canada more self-sufficient. It's about reducing our dependence on foreign markets that we cannot control and building an economy that stands strong on its own. This is about taking control of our economic future. We can no longer settle for the status quo. The barriers between our provinces have existed for far too long, and the time to act is now. By removing these obstacles, we can unlock the true potential of our economy and create a more connected and prosperous Canada. The question is whether we are ready to make the necessary changes. The answer should be a resounding yes. Gotta go back pages now. And out of Helen's kitchen. She has a story from Helen Dry's, a story on the ice box, and pictured Dee Botham and Ernie Birch cutting ice on a beaver dam. Can you imagine life before the development of electricity and power lines? Before the advent of refrigerators and deep freezers? To keep food cold to prevent waste, people had ice houses. The ice house was a cellar dug in the ground with a building built over it. The Earth's insulating properties and coolness created an ideal environment. In the depth of winter, a team of horses were hooked up to the sleigh and out to a river, lake, or dugout. With a huge ice saw, large blocks of ice were cut. The floating blocks of ice were pulled out of the water with ice tongs. With considerable effort, the blocks of ice were hauled out of the water. Care had to be taken so the heavy weight of the blocks of the ice did not pull you into the water. The large blocks of ice were loaded on the sleigh and hauled back home to the ice house. Straw or sawdust from sawing the winter wood was layered between the blocks of ice and layered on top of the ice. A ventilation system with an air shaft allowed for the circulation of cool air within the ice house, preventing the buildup of moisture. This method was so effective that the ice was often still frozen the next winter. Cream cans were stored on ice blocks, and it was essential to keep the cream cool enough so it would not sour before shipping. In the house were ice boxes that kept the food cool. They were usually made of wood or metal, lined with tin or zinc, and insulated with sawdust or straw. The ice was placed in a compartment at the top of the box, and cool air from the ice would circulate downward into the main compartment where food was stored. As ice melted, it would drain into a tray at the bottom of the box and needed to be emptied regularly. Ice boxes needed more ice every couple of days. The ice box would keep your milk, meat, butter, and other food items cold, so it would last longer. In towns and cities, the iceman would drive a horse-drawn ice wagon and deliver blocks of ice with ice hooks into a customer's homes and lift it into the ice box. Kids would chase the iceman's horse-drawn ice wagon down the street, hoping for a small chunk of ice on a hot summer day. The first electric refrigerator was made in 1913. It wasn't until the 1930s that they became more reliable and affordable, and by the late 1940s, refrigerators had become a common household feature in most city and town homes. As electricity came to the farms, the fridge was usually the first appliance purchased. And Helen has a recipe for ice cream cookie sandwiches that looks pretty delicious. And the first February meeting for the Neepawa Town Council by Owen Devereux. While it was a relatively uneventful agenda at Neepawa's most recent town council's meeting, there were still a few items of note from the gathering. Mayor Brian Headley reported on his attendance at the Midwestern District Mayors and Reeves meeting in late January. Headley shared that Malaya Marcelino, Manitoba's Minister of Labour and Immigration, was on hand for the event. The ministers shared some basics in regard to new immigration strategies that will soon be brought forward by the province. Councillor Yvonne Sisley updated council on the prep for the Winter Festival planned for Neepawa in advance of Louis Riel Day. The festivities will be held on Sunday, February 16th, and that has been postponed until next Sunday, and take place at the Flats starting at 1:30. Also, Sisley spotlighted that February is Love to Read Month. The local library has created a reading bingo card that can be located online or the town office. Neepawa's Economic Development Office, along with Settlement Service and Westlake Employment, is hosting a job fair on February 27th from 3 to 6 p.m. at the Neepawa Legion Building. As of last week, there were 12 businesses signed up to participate. Councillor Deputy Mayor Murray Parrott offered an update on Arts Forward's newest exhibit, as artist Shannon Desjardins will be featured beginning February 13th. Councillor Daryl Gerard noted that the County Courthouse Committee met in January and continue to prepare their budget for the year ahead. The courthouse continues to wait on an update from the province on future long-term funding to keep the facility feasible. Councillor Jason Nadeau shared that the Washburn Subdivision Trail Association will have its annual general meeting next month. Manager of Operations. The last few weeks have been relatively quiet for Denise Saquette, other than a few housekeeping-style items. There were 3 permanent job postings recently advertised by the town of Neepawa. The deadline to apply was February 1st, and interviews should be underway shortly. As well, seasonal job postings were now posted. Snow clearing is proceeding as usual, and water plans related to water and sewer and bulk water station continue. The bulk station has been dealing with some minor technical malfunctions as of late. While maintenance workers have been able to restore limited access, Council decided to proceed with the repairs and upgrades. The improvements for the bulk station are expected to be completed within the next few weeks and will cost $21,560 plus taxes. A question was asked in relation to the road excavation work currently underway to expand Hamilton Street. A local citizen was curious as to where the removed earth was going. Saquette said they had arranged a spot for relocation. And miscellaneous. The town of Neepawa has put an application to the Canada Housing Fund Infrastructure Program to assist with the planned development of 58 acres of land on the town's northwest corner. The final matter of note from the meeting saw Council review a new lease agreement for the Neepawa Area Planning District. And Shedding Loneliness Through Men's Sheds, a submitted article. Ever heard of a men's shed? All over Canada, men's sheds have emerged as vital community hubs, offering older men a space to connect, engage in meaningful activities, and enhance their overall well-being. Originating in Australia, the grassroots movement has gained international traction, including here in Manitoba, where 10 independent men's sheds are active and operating around the province. Men's Shed Manitoba supports and promotes the establishment of men's sheds across the province. According to President Fred Bobrowski, men's sheds plays a crucial role in promoting mental health among older men. Many older men face loneliness or social isolation, especially after retirement, but being part of a shed provides a vital sense of belonging, says Fred. We often hear from shed members how their shed community has helped them feel valued, supported, and less lonely. Giving back is key. All men's sheds are autonomous and offer a diverse range of activities tailored to the interests and skills of their members. Activities range from woodworking to metalworking, gardening, card games, crafting, and there's always an opportunity to talk over coffee. Most often, sheds partner with local nonprofit organizations to take on community projects, such as building furniture for local schools or charities, creating toys for child care centers, and participating in environmental conservation efforts like tree planting or community gardening. The aspect of giving back is key, says Fred. When we know we're helping our community, we really feel that sense of purpose that can be lost after retirement, says Fred. Health by stealth. In addition to being a place to work on hands-on projects, the men's shed often serves as an informal setting for health education, where members can access information or hear presentations on various health topics. This health by stealth approach effectively reaches men who might be reluctant to engage with traditional health services. Educational workshops are also a staple of many sheds, offering sessions on technology skills or financial planning. Building resilient communities. The positive effects of the men's sheds have a ripple effect extending far beyond the individual participants. Families benefit from the enhanced well-being of their loved ones, who often return home happy and fulfilled after a day at the shed. And by fostering a sense of belonging and active participation, men's sheds contribute to building stronger, more cohesive and resilient communities. At a national level, Men's Sheds Canada, MSC, exists to grow and strengthen the men's sheds movement and has ambitious plans to increase the number of sheds in Canada from approximately 140 today to 1,000 by 2032. Recognizing the role sheds play in supporting men's mental health, federal governments in both Australia and Ireland now include significant grant funding for shed development and sustainability in their health and aging policies. Ultimately, our objective is to inform Canadian policymakers about the pressing health issues affecting older men, highlight the positive social impact of men's sheds, and influence government policy that supports older men's healths, added Golick. Starting or joining a men's shed. Interested in starting a men's shed in your community? Resources, support, and startup funding is available. For information on how to join an existing shed, start a new shed, or support men's sheds in Manitoba, please contact men'sshedmanitoba@gmail.com. For information on men's sheds across Canada, contact Men's Sheds Canada at info@men'sshedcanada.org. And a submitted op-ed, healthcare workers prepare to strike. And there's an editor's note on this. The Manitoba Association of Healthcare Professionals, MAHCP, sent out a multi-page press release this past week with the intention of raising alarm bells about the state of healthcare in Manitoba. MAHCP states that they are the only union in the provinces solely dedicated to representing allied health, with more than 7,000 members working in more than 45 disciplines. MAHCP members have been without a contract for more than 10 months and took a strike vote in January 2025, delivering a 96% strike mandate. Of particular concern is the ever longer wait times for ambulances. Call volume averages are up by 64%. MAHCP claims that due to staffing shortages, ambulances were out of service for an average of 30,000 hours per month. Following is the full text of the MAHCP press release. Rural Manitobans are waiting longer for emergency medical services, and more ambulances are sitting idle as paramedic staffing shortages remain at a critical level, according to new data obtained by the Manitoba Association of Healthcare Professionals through a Freedom of Information request. Despite the Manitoba government's commitment to fixing healthcare, ambulance response times in rural communities are still getting worse, said Jason Linklater, president of MAHCP. Paramedics are committed to providing care, but they are struggling with ongoing staffing shortages, combined with higher call volumes and intensifying social challenges, including on-the-job violence. Key findings. Rural ambulances were out of service an average of almost 30,000 hours each month due to staffing shortages in 2024. i.e., 2 paramedics were not available to staff the ambulance, a 400% increase since 2020. Maximum response times at the 90th percentile have reached over 50 minutes in Western Manitoba, Prairie Mountain Health Region, and Interlake Eastern. A new record target is under 30 minutes. Response time has increased year over year in Prairie Mountain, plus 12%, and Northern, plus 39%. Health regions from November 2023 to November 2024. There was no significant change or improvement in response times for Interlake Eastern and Southern health regions. Since 2018, overall call volumes have increased an average of 64% across the 4 health regions, with the Northern health region seeing the highest call volume increased at 85%. An estimated 28% of shared health paramedic positions are vacant, over 200 of roughly 800 positions, representing only a slight improvement from 30% in 2023. While Budget 2024 set a goal of adding 90 net new paramedics, the province's data revealed a net gain of only 14 paramedics between April 1st and December 31st, 2024. MAHCP is calling on the government of Manitoba to take immediate steps to not only retain the experienced paramedics working today, but also begin rebuilding rural emergency medical services by working with frontline paramedics and the union on common sense solutions to improve working conditions and work-life balance, settling a fair, competitive collective agreement for allied health professionals, including paramedics, who have been working under an expired contract for 10 months, developing and fast-tracking new, accessible primary care paramedic, PCP, training opportunities for rural Manitobans, and promoting and supporting careers in paramedicine to ensure training seats are filled. Manitobans living and traveling in rural areas deserve equal access to medical care, said Linklater. No one should be waiting this long for help in a medical emergency, nor should they be waiting this long for meaningful action to address wait times that are still rising. Solutions are in reach. And Neepawa Community Ministries Center makes presentation to Town Council by Owen Devereaux. As municipal budget discussions begin to ramp up within the town of Neepawa, one local organization is proactively asking for some consideration. On Tuesday, February 4th, Amanda Nottingale made a presentation to Council on behalf of Neepawa Community Ministries Center. Nottingale provided an in-depth overview of the organization's local history and what it continues to do within our region. In conjunction with the Salvation Army, the center operates a thrift store in Neepawa that generates around 85% of their total operating funds. Other services the organization offer include the food bank, Christmas hamper program, and more. As well, Nottingale updated council members on the center's current expansion efforts at their 342 Mountain Avenue location. Those plans include an increased food bank space as well as a community kitchen and learning space. Roof repair request. Also, as part of the presentation, Nottingale asked Council to consider assisting with some very specific and important facility improvements. We currently have a grant application into the town of Neepawa regarding help funding the roof repair for our thrift store. I'm sure Mayor Headley can attest to the design flaw of that flat roof portion above the thrift store. There's some issues there, and we currently experience major leaks on the sales floor when we have heavy rains, said Nottingale. The Neepawa Community Ministries Center has applied for funding through the town's community grant program, specifically for roof repairs. Those types of requests will be reviewed as part of the town's budget deliberations in the spring. And an intro to fire safety. And there's some pictures here. Clients and kids connected to the Settlement Workers in Schools program were invited to attend a fire safety talk given by Neepawa Fire Chief Eve Gillis on February 10th at the multipurpose room in the Settlement Office multipurpose room in the top photo. The talk also included a tour of the Neepawa Fire Hall, the middle photo, and much to the delight of both the kids and adults, each child was also provided with copies of the Community Safety Net Fire Safety Booklet, pictured in the bottom photo. And more community. Minnedosa is ready to curl for the cure by Owen Devereaux. The 6th annual Curling for a Cure fundraiser returns this weekend to the Minnedosa Curling Club. This year's event, which runs from February 14th to 16th, will feature 24 teams and has set its fundraising goal at $30,000. Organizer Chad Yanchicki said that if they are able to hit that ambition number, they break the $100,000 mark for total amount of money raised since the fundraiser's inception. To date, in our first 5 years, we have raised and donated $94,551, stated Yanchicki. Our event has grown substantially over the past few years, and we are excited to continue this growth. The weekend was already off to a tremendous start, as all 24 available spaces were sold out in just a week's time. On top of that, Yanchicki added that there is a waiting list of 8 teams already committed themselves for 2026. As for the schedule, the draws will start at 5 p.m. on Friday, February 14th. Those will be followed by 3 draws Friday night, 6 on Saturday morning, and then the final 5 on Sunday starting at 9 a.m. The finals will kick off at 6:30 p.m. on Sunday evening, with the check presentation to be done prior to that. Aside from their curling, there will also be a horse race draw to the button on Saturday afternoon, and the band Bull Ruckus will be playing Saturday night from 7:30 to 10:30. There is free admission to the events all weekend, including the live band. Other aspects of the fundraiser also include a raffle, silent auction, and 50-50 draw. Individuals do not need to be in attendance to win. If you wish to bid on any items or just donate to the event, you can contact via email at curlingforacure@gmail.com or call Chad at 204-871-3344. All proceeds from Curling for a Cure are to be donated to the Neepawa Community Cancer Program and Candlelighters Childhood Cancer. And in the center is featured our Neepawa Titans, the 24-25 team roster. It includes pictures of all the team players, the coaches, the athletics staff, and a big cheer out to all of them. And moving on, bringing in some big ones, pictured here at Lake Irwin. Photos are by Brad Mummery. Lake Irwin has been producing some big fish catches this winter. We are told fish larger than 29 inches are released to keep the population large and healthy in the lake. Under that length, a fisher can take home their prize for a fish fry. Pictured here are Melissa Mummery on the right and Sean Dennis above with their northern pike catches. Pretty impressive looking fish. And moving on to sports. Amazing offense from Tigers hockey by Owen Devereaux. The Neepawa Tigers continue to have one of the most potent offenses in Westman High School hockey. Neepawa showed it off once again by first besting the Reston Renegade 8-3 on Wednesday, February 5th. They'd follow that up with an 11-4 win against Vincent Massey No. 2 on Tuesday, February 11th. These were the 6th and 7th times in the last 10 games that Neepawa has been able to generate 5 or more goals in a game. For the Reston game, Brock Pulaski opened up the scoring for the Tigers early on in the first, while Wyatt Negevin contributed one more at the midway point of the period on a power play opportunity. While Reston was able to tie it up before the first intermission, Neepawa's Ian Foster reestablished the 2-goal cushion with a pair in the second. Foster would then chip in one more in the third, earning himself his second hat trick in as many games. Other goal scorers for Neepawa in the third were Cohen Kalbaki, who collected his 42nd of the season, as well as negative second of the game, and Brocklin Boersma's first of the season. Nearly a week later, the Tigers played the second of 2 teams that represent Vincent Massey High School in Brandon. Wyatt Negevin scored 4 goals and added an assist, while Ian Foster, 1 goal, 3 assists, and Cohen Kalbaki, 2 goals, 1 assist. Jude Carr, Ben Richard, and Luke Nicholson also scored for the Tigers. Neepawa has now won its last 5 games and moved up into 5th place in the WHSHL standings with an 18-7-1 record. Their next 3 games are all at home, including their annual Tigers Fight Cancer fundraiser versus Minnedosa on Friday, February 14th. Opening face-off will be at 7:30 p.m. And the regular season schedule wraps up around the Tiger Hills Hockey League by Owen Devereaux. All 12 teams across the Tiger Hills Hockey League, THHL, have concluded their regular season schedules for 24-25. For the Neepawa Farmers, that required a pair of games on consecutive nights last weekend. The first was their last home game of the schedule on Friday, February 7th versus the Killarney Shamrocks. A win for Killarney meant they would secure first place in the Tiger Hills East Division, so the Shamrocks hit the ice with a lot of motivation. That, combined with an experienced roster of top-tier Senior A players, proved to be too much for the Farmers, as Killarney cruised to a decisive 10-2 win. In total, 10 separate Shamrocks closed the night with a multi-point game, including 4-point efforts from Reed Gow, 2 goals, 2 assists, Ty Enns, 1 goal, 3 assists, and Isaac Friesen, 1 goal, 3 assists. Neepawa, who are currently on a youth movement with this year's roster, just couldn't keep pace with a club that has the collective experience of Killarney. Ethan Winters and Kyle McDonald scored the pair of goals for the Farmers. The following evening, the Farmers traveled west to Minnedosa to face the Bombers. With both teams already locked into their playoff positions, there wasn't a lot to play for, other than personal pride and local bragging rights. And that seemed to be more than enough as both sides put in a full effort, which ultimately fell in Minnedosa's favors with a 5-4 win. Wes Lewis led the way with 3 goals for the Bombers, while Ryan Hino and Joey Robinson scored singles. For Neepawa, Garrett Rempel and Kyle McDonald both contributed, each scoring once and adding a pair of assists. Brad Marshall added the other goal and also had 1 assist on the night. These results have Neepawa closing out the regular season with a 3-11-1 record and in 5th place in the East. The Minnedosa win, meanwhile, places them in at 3rd in the division with a 10-4-2 record. For the postseason, Neepawa will be paired up against the McGregor Wild, 7-9-0, 14 points, while Minnedosa will take on the Carberry Plainsmen, 213.1.5 points. The Killarney Shamrocks and Rivers Jets finished in first and second place, which secured each of them a first-round bye in the playoff. As for the West Division, the Verdun Oil Kings and Boissevain Border Kings will get the first-round byes, while Hartney will play Souris and Melita will take on Deloraine. And arenas are community essentials, but very expensive, by Ken Waddell. Neepawa's Yellowhead Center was built in 1971-72 and opened in the fall of 1972. Since opening day, the YHC has witnessed thousands of events. It's the largest capacity venue for miles around. YHC holds minor hockey, figure skating, gymnastics events, weddings, funerals, Remembrance Day services, trade shows, and antique and collectible shows, as well as vaccination clinics, provincial, federal, and local election days. Old-timer, senior, and high school hockey teams all call the Yellowhead home. The Yellowhead is where the Neepawa Titans plays one of 12 arenas in Manitoba, where a Manitoba Junior Hockey League Junior A team plays. For comparison, those 12 arenas and some information about each of them is included in the chart shown on this page. Most of the 12 arenas are owned by their respective towns. Only Neepawa's Yellowhead is community-owned, and the Hockey for All Centre in Winnipeg is privately owned by True North Sports and Entertainment. Of the arenas where the age could be determined, the closest example similar to Neepawa is the Roy H. Johnston Arena in the Paul. It was built in 1969 at a cost of $385,000. In 2001, the community started studies to renovate or replace the arena. It was decided not to build a new one, but to do a renovation in 2005 of the Roy H. Johnston at a cost of $4.4 million. A couple of years ago, the former OCN Blizzard hockey team went into private ownership, and as of last year renamed as the Northern Manitoba Blizzard, plays in the town of the Paw, owned by the Roy H. Johnson. Similar to the Roy H. Johnson, Neepawa's Yellowhead embarked on a study of what needed to be done to update the Yellowhead around 2013. In 2014, an extensive engineering study was done for Neepawa's Yellowhead Center by the engineering firm Bogue & Bogue. Below are notes from the report's introductory letter and the executive summary. Bogue & Bogue introductory letter. Enclosed is our final report for outlining our findings regarding the condition of the existing multi-use recreational complex. As per our proposal, a building code review, a structural review, mechanical and electrical systems review, and a roof condition review have been carried out, and the results are presented in this report. In addition, required upgrades and an approximate estimate of their construction cost are also included in the report. While the complex appears to be performing adequately, a number of life safety, structural, and mechanical system deficiencies were found. Some of the life safety issues identified need to be addressed as soon as possible to ensure public safety. In the course of the inspections, it was apparent that a number of alterations and modifications have been made to the facility over the years, which in some cases have created non-conforming conditions. It is recommended that you consider what upgrades to undertake into the future, that you engage the services of a project manager to ensure that required work items are done in a coordinated manner and are in conformity with all code requirements. Bogue & Bogue would be pleased to provide a quote for such services if desired. Much has changed since 2014. It must be noted that the building codes have changed since 2014, and the reports summarized below would all have to be reviewed again before a decision could be made whether to repair, renovate, or replace the Yellowhead Center. Regardless of what decision is made, it will be a long process, as the replacement option would likely be years away. Based on experiences in Minnedosa and Steinbach, the process of replacing an arena can take 10 years and includes determining the will of the community. The actual Bogue & Bogue report is about 50 pages long and is quite complicated and technical. There are many charts and pictures. Due to the cost and complexity of the suggested changes, it isn't surprising that neither the Yellowhead nor the town of Neepawa tackled the many changes that the report said were needed. There are few, if any, people in the town of Neepawa Council or YHC board who were involved in 2014. The 2014 Bogue & Bogue report begins with the note saying, The reader should be cautioned that while the review attempts to be comprehensive, that not all non-conforming conditions may have been identified, and there may be some items discovered subsequent to this report which may not be code conforming. The information presented in this report is based upon visual review only, and no testing or selective demolition was done to determine the makeup of assemblies or underlying conditions that were not visible or of spaces that were not accessible for review. Inspection on site were carried out by Bogue & Bogue personnel on November 15, 2013, roof, and on November 21st and 22nd, 2013, life safety, structural, mechanical, and electrical. Various parts of the YHC building were considered. Building code, life safety review, estimated cost of required upgrades, $1.8 million. Structural review, estimated cost of required upgrades, $360,000. Mechanical system review, estimated cost of required upgrades, $400,000. Electrical systems review, estimated cost of required upgrades, $75. Roof condition review, estimated cost of required upgrades, $300,000. Estimated cost of all required upgrades, $2,935. This amount is in 2014 dollars. According to the Bank of Canada, in 2024, that amount would be $3,800,176. And in the chart at the top, it's very hard to see because it's small print, but the ownership, basically, the Yellowhead Center is the only volunteer committee-owned facility. And full disclosure from Ken Waddell, I was mayor of Neepawa at the time and chair of the YHC board at the same time. Both the YHC staff and board considered the report and consulted with experienced people, including the planning officer and the fire department. Without the ability or funds to commit to proceed, only some of the recommendations were acted upon. That said, if one considers older arenas and other older public places across Manitoba, very few facilities would likely meet today's code comments either. And more pages. The 100th anniversary of the Men's Curling Viterra Championship, submitted by Robert Smith. A group from the Edmonds-Furdale area were fortunate to attend the semifinal and final of the 2025 Men's Curling Championship on Sunday, February 29th, at the Stride Centre Arena on the island on the south side of Portage. Sunday morning at 9:30, it was the semi-final with Reed Carruthers outlasting Walters in a very close game that went to the final skip rock thrown in the 10th end. At one point, it was still a win. That put Reed Carruthers into the 3 p.m. final versus Carberry's Braden Calvert, playing out of the Fort Rouge Curling Club in Winnipeg, who had gone undefeated during the 100th anniversary of the Men's Curling Championship. A good crowd filled the Stride Arena, usually a hockey rink, which had been transformed into 5 sheets of curling ice and accompanying social areas just the weekend before by a dedicated, experienced ice-making crew as part of the 180 volunteers from the hosting Portage Curling Club. With lots of support from the Carberry area, what had been a cool, calm Calvert, World Junior Championship curling team almost a decade ago, versus the top seed Reed Carruthers. Right from the first end, the cool, experienced Carruthers rink stole 2 when Calvert's last rock hit 1 yellow rock but rolled out, leaving Reed to steal 2 in the first end. Calvert started to build a good scoring end in the second, but when Reed's last rock was a double takeout, Braden just threw his last rock as a free shot through the house. In the third end, Reed's final shot was a double run back to remove Braden's first skip stone and left Team Calvert facing 3 yellow rocks. They calmed down and were able to guide the rock to catch a piece of the 4-foot for a single. Carruthers 2, Calvert 1. Team Carruthers experienced third. BJ Newfield had a great game going, doing takeouts and leaving Braden Calvert tough shots. In the fourth end, BJ was at his best in a hit on the red stone in the 8-foot and a rollover to hang on as a biter. Braden's first shot removed 1 yellow, but there were 2 yellows remaining. Reed drew another yellow walk in behind a red guard rock. Braden's second shot came up a little short, allowing for a possible mittful. Reed drew into the 4-foot for what looked like 3 scoring yellow stones. A measurement gave Team Carruthers a score of 4 in the fourth end. They jumped out to a 6-1 lead. In the fifth end, BJ threw a run back of yellow guard to eliminate 2 of the 3 red stones. Corey Chambers, Calvert's third, drew into the top of the button. Reed's first stone was a double to eliminate both red stones. Reed's second shot allowed Team Calvert a chance to get back into the game. All Braden had to do is draw into the 8-foot ring to score 2. A much-needed double made the score Carruthers 6 and Calvert 3 as they stopped for the fifth end break. Braden's first shot in the sixth end was a draw to the front of the button, now sitting 3 red rocks. Reed's first shot was a tap back to set up for his last rock, leaving 1 yellow rock sitting in the 4-foot. Braden's second shot bumped the yellow rock out, leaving 3 red rocks. Reed was up to the challenge, doing a tap out and roll to the button to score 1. The 6th ended, leaving Carruthers 7, Calvert 3. In the 7th end, Braden's first stone was a perfect hit and roll under cover. Reed conceding a possible 2 by peeling out the second red stone. Braden replied with a draw to the top of the 4-foot to score 2 in the 7th end, clawing his way back to a score of Carruthers 7, Calvert 5. Taking 2 points and giving 1, Team Calvert would need the old 12-end game to catch up. In the 8th end, Team Carruthers was sitting 3 yellow, but Braden's first shot was a triple takeout, clearing the house. Reed's draw was a little deep, allowing Braden to draw in on top. Reed was forced to draw to the 4-foot to score 1. The rock was a little heavy and the sweepers never touched it, but the rock dug in to stop, leaving Carruthers 8 and Calvert 5. Team Calvert played much better in the second half of the game as they tried to regroup after giving away 4 points in the 4th. As in turn, bump back was the call for Reed's first stone to sit 2 yellow. After a team meeting, Braden goes for a triple yellow takeout. Task accomplished. Left red sitting with 2. Reed missed his double takeout, and Braden, who was back in the groove, scored 2 in the 9th end to catch up. The score was now Carruthers 8 and Calvert 7. As the teams headed into the last game, and Team Carruthers had the hammer, and Team Calvert needed to steal one in order to tie and force an extra end. B.J. Newfield's second shot was the same as his first, a takeout of the yellow guard. Braden's first rock was a little heavy and it bounced a little off the pile of rocks. Unfortunately, it did not freeze. Reed called a timeout and his team figured out their best shot. Team Carruthers was able to raise in a yellow rock to sit 2. Braden's last rock only removed 1 yellow and Team Carruthers won without Reed throwing his last rock. Reed Carruthers is now Team Manitoba as they head off to the Briar in Kelowna, BC. And the Gladstone Market Report by Tyler Slawinski. Another week of uncertainty in what may be in store for the cattle market as politics loomed tariffs over the Canadian cattlemen. It wasn't all doom and gloom in today's market. The market, for the most part, was spotty from steady to stronger in spots to lower in others. On Feb 10th, the two were stronger, but unfortunately we lost everything we gained this afternoon. We saw a very impressive set of cattle on February 11th, very good quality. First cut cattle are selling strong. Most of the feeder cattle sold well, and much similar to trade from 3 to 4 weeks ago. Second and third cut cattle are definitely seeing discounts. If they don't fit the orders, they are soon sorted from the packages. Looking at that from the buyer's perspective, with the cattle being worth so much, and it's not hard to see why they are paying a premium. The cattle should fit the order. The cattle are still in strong demand, and I expect to see strong prices until the next political debate. We sold 1,438 head of cattle through the ring in Gladstone on Feb 11th. Cows and bulls are trending with higher averages. Feeding-type cows and heiferettes are still selling stronger than yielding cows. Yielding cows still traded quite reasonably from 170 to 187, looking like strong demands. Feeding-type cows are ranging between 186 to 197. Bulls traded strong, ranging between 210 to 224.50. With these prices, it's not hard to see why many of these young feeding-type cows aren't getting a second chance. Some highlights from the sale: red steers weighed 415, traded for a decent 612.50 per pound. Black steers weighed 562 and traded for 501. Black steers weighed 613 and brought 480. Crossbred steers weighed 740 and they hit 414.50. A ringful of fancy Red Cross steers weighed 820 and they checked out at 380.25. Tan steers, 975 pounds, brought 355. Heifers, black heifers weighed 430 and traded for 528. Tan-hided heifers weighed 535 and brought 424. Char heifers weighed 645 and made 411. And still in sports, Caden Hegarty named an MJHL Star of the Week by the Banner staff. Neepawa Titans forward Caden Hegarty. The Manitoba Junior Hockey League has announced the Stars of the Week for February 3rd to 9th, 2025. Neepawa Titans forward Caden Hegarty, number 5, has been named one of those stars. Hegarty enjoyed 3 straight games with 2 or more points, which included a pair of games with a goal and 2 assists. Hegarty's performance helped the Titans pick up 4 of a possible 6 points in the MJHL standings last week as they continue to push for positioning in the MJEU West Division. Defenseman Isaiah Peters of the Winkler Flyers, 4 games, 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 total points, and forward Miguel Bouvier of Northern Manitoba Blizzard, 4 games, 5 goals, 5 assists, 10 total points. The Manitoba Junior Hockey League Stars of the Week are proudly presented by Original 16. And Looking Back by Casper Warehan. 125 years ago. Note the entries for 1900 are from the Neepawa Register, as the press for that year is not fit for regular handling. Trappers in the Red Deer country report beaver numerous this year, in case the temperatures might prove too strong for hunters, and that they might not know that it is against the law to have beaver skins in their possession. Section 2, subsection H of the Manitoba Game Protection Act says, beaver shall not be shot at, hunted, trapped, taken, or killed, so that there is no open season for the beaver, from the Dauphin Press. 100 years ago, 1925, Arden, the Hainstock family at Keys, are still under quarantine for smallpox, Mrs. Hainstock's mother, Mrs. Kingsley, aged 92 years, being the last in the house to contract the disease, and is reported to be getting well over them now. Her son, Dave Kinsley from Minto, spent the weekend up at Keys, returning Wednesday. Spring Hill, Eldon Clark attended the masquerade dance in Neepawa last Friday, also the Opera House attractions to the following day. Spring Hill, I. Baker had a real birthday celebration at the oyster supper. No after effects from the oysters reported yet. 75 years ago, 1950, Miss Lillian Pettigrew, Executive Secretary of the Manitoba Association of Registered Nurses, was the guest speaker at a meeting of the graduate nurses of Neepawa District in the Royal Cafe banquet room. There were 25 nurses present. During the open session that followed, the organization of Graduate Nurses Group in Neepawa was discussed. It was decided to organize a study group. The purpose of this group will be to study the newer trends of nursing and to foster a closer interest in the MARN on the part of the nurses who are unable to attend the meetings in Winnipeg. The first meeting of this study group will be at the home of Mrs. J. McLaren on Wednesday, February 15th at 8 p.m. Neepawa Air Cadets basketball team, who are showing vast improvements under the coaching of Jim Bullock, trounced the Rivers Air Cadets 37-10 at the Airport Drill Hall Saturday afternoon. Mentmore. The Mentmore Chicken Club held a very successful social evening on February 3rd in the rink. Approximately 200 attended. At the regular meeting on February 9th, the Rosedale Council decided to pay $50 of the cost of digging a well in the Kelwood Incorporated Village. The Reeve, T.R. Young, presented a statement of the meeting showing that the cost of the well to be $110.83. Mrs. B.W. Gross of the Arden District brought a king-size hen's egg into the press office Saturday afternoon, and we can definitely state that the triple yoker was the largest hen's egg we have ever seen. The egg, which weighed 7 ounces and measured 9 3/4 inches in circumference around the long way and 8 1/4 inches around the middle, looked more like a goose egg. Mrs. Gross stated that she thought it had been laid by a black Osterlope hen at their farm. Examined at the local egg grading station, the light relieved at least 3 yolks. What a Spanish omelet it would have made. Inkerman Citizens Forum deals with the topics, how should the West deal with the Soviet bloc? The forum approved the Truman Doctrine, the Marshall Plan, and the North Atlantic Pact as instruments in controlling the expansion of the Soviet bloc. And 50 years ago, 1975, and pictured is the Neepawa Co-op Service Station won the Excellence Award in February of 1975. Pictured here are members of the quality service team. They are from back row left to right, Neil Rempel, Bill Ferguson, Terry Bates, and Earl Harding. Front row, Sonia and Stanley Podruchny. And Len Suderman of the McCreary Ski Club continued his dominance at the Manitoba Cup Series races that are being held to determine the provincial team for the 1976 Winter Games, notching back-to-back first-place finishes for the second straight weekend. Suderman's victories over the past weekend at Mount Glenorchy, just west of Brandon, follow similar victories a week earlier at the season's first meet held at McCreary. And 20 years ago, 2005, Jessica Mellum of Gladstone has opened a home-based daycare, providing care for up to 8 children aged 12 weeks to 12 years. A new study has found that chronic pain, often associated with the elderly, afflicts young people just as much. Dr. Carmen Green, a pain specialist at the University of Michigan and the study's lead author, even said researchers were surprised at the results. So how does a small-town guy become president of the Canadian Wildlife Federation and in a position to influence both national and international policy on wildlife and nature? Carberry's Bob Barton is that guy, and he will be in Neepawa on Feb 24th to discuss his lifelong interest in conservation. Barton will show images and talk about his role as head of Canada's most notable wildlife agency at Neepawa Naturally's first presentation of the year. Neepawa Naturally is a program of nature presentations sponsored jointly by the Neepawa Public Library and the Neepawa Area Fish and Game Association. And if you're looking for a Noel washer in 1900, B.R. Hamilton and Company had it. This as was in the February 21st edition of the Neepawa Register for that year. The Noel washer, the best washing machine yet invented. It saves labor, saves clothes, and saves health and strength. No host should be without one. And finally, as always, is our Kids Scoop. And this week's paper has hippos. All sorts of information about hippos. Word searches, pictures, how to draw a hippo, and even information about hippos, how big their mouth is. Good for the kids. And that concludes the reading of the Neepawa Banner and Press for Friday, February 14th. I hope you enjoyed.